When you stop trying to please everyone, you don't lose love. You don't become cold. On the contrary, you awaken a hidden kind of power, a power so striking that even those used to manipulating you must take a step back. Sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? All your life, you've been taught that the kinder, the more accommodating, the more easygoing you are, the more lovable you'll be. But that's one of the deepest illusions society has planted in you. And it's the very illusion that traps you in a cycle of exhaustion with no escape. Think about it. How many times have you nodded yes, just to keep the peace? How many times have you smiled and said, "I'm fine," while inside you were screaming, "No"? How many nights have you stayed up late answering texts, explaining, soothing, all because you were afraid someone might think you didn't care? If you've been there, you know the bone-deep fatigue it brings. It doesn't just drain your energy, it robs you of the very sense of who you are. Carl Jung spoke of this phenomenon through the concept of the persona, the social mask each of us wears to be accepted. For most people, the persona is just a thin layer. But for the deeply sensitive, what today we call empaths, that mask can become a prison. And let me emphasize, Jung never directly used the word empath the way we do today. Yet, his descriptions of overwhelming sensitivity, of the shadow swelling when denied, closely mirror the experiences the modern empath community talks about. Jung observed this. When you keep turning your no into a yes, your pain into "I'm fine," the darkness inside doesn't vanish. It accumulates, it compresses, and it waits for the day it breaks through. This is the psychological law Jung called enantiodromia. Whatever is pushed to its extreme will eventually flip into its opposite. The kinder you are to a fault, the sharper and colder you become when you reach your limit. The more you fear losing love, the sooner you'll be forced to learn how to love with discernment. Modern science has shown why empaths burn out so easily. Mirror neurons in their brains fire more intensely than average. When someone is sad, they feel that sadness in their own body. When someone is anxious, their heart rate rises in sync. It makes them like the shared battery of a room. In the short term, others feel comforted, but over time, the empath is the one left drained. Another line of research on prediction error shows that sensitive brains constantly detect mismatches between words and body language, between smiles and eyes, which means they are always processing more than most people. Imagine a computer with too many tabs open. At first it runs, then it slows, and eventually it crashes. The tragedy is that society praises this endless endurance as if it were a noble virtue. Since childhood, you were taught, good kids obey, good friends don't refuse, good people sacrifice. Every compliment hammered another nail into the mask, until one day you realized you had become a button anyone could push at will. A sigh, a text, a sad glance, and you were already rushing in to play rescuer. And here lies the paradox. The more you please everyone, the more invisible you become. Your presence gets treated as default, like air. And like air, people only notice when it's gone. Only when you collapse do they blink and wonder, what happened? Why are you so weak? While never noticing they've been draining you all along. Jung saw this cycle in countless cases. He warned, if you live only inside the persona, your soul suffocates. But if you dare to drop the mask, if you dare to say no, a new source of energy awakens. It isn't loud. It doesn't chase approval. It's what can only be called psychological sovereignty, the moment you start choosing where your love and compassion go. And paradoxically, the very moment you stop pleasing everyone, you become the most magnetic version of yourself. You may wonder, but if I stop pleasing, won't I be abandoned? Won't I lose love? This is the haunting question for almost every empath. And the answer carries the first great paradox. Stopping the endless pleasing doesn't kill love. It filters it so that only real love can enter. If these words resonate with you, stay with me. Because once you see this paradox clearly, you'll begin to see love, boundaries, and your own hidden strength with entirely new eyes. The greatest fear for many empaths is abandonment. From childhood, you learned that only when you behaved, only when you pleased others, you were praised, loved, and accepted. And so, you trained yourself into a reflex, nodding when you wanted to say no, smiling when you wanted to cry, taking the blame even when it wasn't yours. At first, it seemed to work. People liked you. But here's the brutal truth. Love gained through submission isn't love at all, it's control wearing the mask of affection. Carl Jung pointed out that anything built on the persona, the mask of "I'm fine, I'm always agreeable," will collapse once that mask falls. Others never loved you. They only loved the role you played. And that is the first paradox. Stopping the habit of pleasing doesn't take love away. It takes away the imitations of love. It filters out fake connections, codependent ties, and relationships where you're valued only because you sacrifice yourself. In everyday life, this shows up clearly. Work. When you stop being the free fixer, some will be annoyed. But colleagues who truly respect you will begin to collaborate instead of exploiting you. Romantic relationships. When you stop replying instantly, those who only want control will lash out. But someone who truly loves you will learn to wait, will ask what you actually need. Family. When you're no longer the cushion for every conflict, some will call you selfish. But those who have grown will start taking responsibility for their own emotions. At first, this shift hurts. Fewer people remain around you. Some turn away. Some relationships crack. You'll feel like you've lost everything. But remember, what leaves you isn't love, it's dependency. The moment you stop giving unconditional energy, the counterfeit bonds dissolve, making room for the real ones. Jung called this process individuation, the journey back to the self. It isn't about adding more, but about peeling away. Peeling off the masks, peeling off the bindings, until what's left is the purest you. And in that purity, real love finally finds its way. Neuroscience also confirms this. When you set clear boundaries, your body's signals, your breathing, your gaze, your voice broadcast confidence. Others may not like it, but they still sense respect beneath it. In other words, saying no doesn't make you lose love, it makes you more valuable to the ones who are worthy. So what does real love look like? It doesn't disappear when you need space. It doesn't erupt in anger when you say no. It doesn't attach conditions to your kindness. Real love accepts you with your limits, your shadow, and even your silences. And here's the paradox. Only when you stop pleasing everyone does real love emerge. Those who remain after that filtering are your true companions. What falls away isn't worth mourning because it was never love to begin with. If you've lived through this, whisper a simple line to yourself. I choose real love, not the performance of it. Let that sentence be the anchor that keeps you from ever putting the old mask back on. Empaths are often labeled as sweet, agreeable, easy to ask for help. Behind those three words lies a subtle trap. People automatically assume you'll carry the load, smooth things over, and make peace until even you believe it's your duty. And then they start testing your limits. If I push a little further, will they still take it? Carl Jung called this mechanism projection. Others see you as a mirror reflecting their own weakness. They cast you into the role of rescuer, and because you never break that role, you become the tool they use to avoid facing their own shadow. But there's a turning point. When you begin to pause, when you stop reacting instantly, the projection shatters. They no longer see the obedient mirror, they're forced to face themselves. This is the second paradox. Stopping the habit of pleasing doesn't make you heartless, it makes you impossible to manipulate. Neuroscience explains why. Empaths have a highly active system of mirror neurons, which makes them extremely sensitive to micro-emotions. When you live in pleasing mode, this radar gets scrambled, you react too quickly, often before you even understand what's happening. But when you learn to pause, the radar sharpens. You can tell the difference between real pain that needs listening and guilt trips designed to control you. Imagine a meeting. In the past, the moment someone frowned, you would rush to apologize, explain, take responsibility. Now, you breathe steadily, stay silent, and then ask, "What is it you actually want from me?" That single question collapses the entire old script. They can't trigger your reflex anymore. And at that moment, power shifts. Jung called this state cold clarity. It isn't cruelty. It's the strength of no longer being pulled into someone else's emotional spiral. You stop arguing to prove yourself. You stop rushing in to rescue, and paradoxically, the less you react, the more others must adjust themselves to you. In relationships, it works the same way. When you stop replying instantly, stop bending over backward to keep harmony, someone used to control may get angry, even accuse you of being different. But someone who truly loves you will listen, learn to wait, and respect your rhythm. In that moment, you finally see what's love and what's manipulation. One simple but powerful practice for this paradox is the pause ritual. Before responding to any request, let at least 10 seconds pass. In that silence, ask yourself, do I really want this, or am I just afraid to say no? If the answer comes from fear, give yourself more time. That tiny delay is enough to break the cycle of being used. This paradox can feel hard to swallow. You'll be accused of being selfish, called cold. But remember, their pushback isn't proof you're wrong. It's proof you've stepped out of the role they depended on. And when that role collapses, you are no longer the easy prey you once were. This is the turning point. From being seen as weak, you become the hardest to control. Others may leave, but they can no longer steer you with their emotions. In this steadiness, a new kind of strength emerges. Leave a single line in the comments, "I am no longer prey." And if you know someone stuck in the same pleasing cycle, share this video with them. Sometimes, just one share can open the door to freedom for someone else. From childhood we were taught, to be loved, you must behave. To be accepted, you must obey. To be praised, you must please. And so, year after year, you became someone who constantly runs after other people's eyes. A compliment, a smile, a reply to your text, all of it became like crumbs you had to chase in order to survive. But here's a bitter truth. No amount of external validation will ever fill the emptiness inside. The more you chase it, the hungrier you feel. And when you finally get tired and stop, a strange paradox unfolds. It's precisely when you stop seeking validation that you radiate an irresistible kind of presence. Carl Jung described this with the concept of individuation, the process of becoming a whole, authentic individual. When you stop living through the persona, when you stop relying on the nods of others, you begin to project a different energy, the energy of wholeness. Others feel it, even when you say nothing. Modern science explains it too. Studies on micro-expressions show that people who don't depend heavily on feedback tend to maintain steadier eye contact, breathe more deeply, and speak with an even tone. These subtle signals broadcast one simple message: I am enough. And paradoxically, the very moment you stop needing validation, people start validating you more. Picture it. In the past, when you walked into a room, you smiled too much, talked too much, tried too hard to be liked. But now, you simply sit, listen, and choose your words with care. You no longer run after the rhythm of the crowd. Slowly, the whole room begins to move to your rhythm. People look at you not because you're loud, but because you're still. In love, this becomes even clearer. When you stop worrying about every text, stop checking every reaction, your partner suddenly sees you differently. You're fine even when you're alone. And the paradox is this, that very self-sufficiency makes you more attractive. True magnetism doesn't come from begging, but from being fully present. In work, the same rule applies. The person who constantly chases praise is often seen as replaceable background, nice to have, but easily substituted. But the one who keeps their own rhythm, who dares to say no, who stands by their perspective, is seen as a pillar, because they act not for applause, but for the value they truly bring. A simple practice for this paradox is what I call intentional silence. Every day, carve out at least 15 to 20 minutes without social media, without replying to messages, without seeking approval. In that quiet, write down 3 things you're proud of, no matter how small. This trains you to nurture inner validation instead of waiting for it from the outside. Jung once said, "You cannot live someone else's life. If you keep waiting for others to validate you, you will miss your own." And that's the truth. Only when you stop chasing validation do you become the place others want to gravitate toward. This is the essence of quiet magnetism. It doesn't need performance, it doesn't need compliments, it doesn't need permission, it simply exists. And in its presence, the world cannot help but adjust to you. Stopping the need to please everyone isn't just a philosophical idea. It has to become a habit, a conscious choice woven into your daily life. Only when your actions change does your energy shift. And for that transformation to last, you need to look at 4 essential areas: work, relationships, family, and self-care. At work, the pleasing reflex often turns you into the default fixer. You take on tasks outside your role, answer emails immediately, sacrifice your breaks to keep the team calm. But when you look deeper, this is the very trap that drains you. To step out of it, start by managing your yes budget. Set a clear limit. In a given week, allow yourself only a certain number of extra tasks. When colleagues ask, instead of reflexively nodding, give them 3 options. Extend the deadline, reduce the scope, or reassign to someone else. This doesn't just protect you, it forces the system around you to operate more responsibly. In relationships, the pleasing loop can be even subtler. You text back instantly. You avoid saying no. You bend over backwards to keep harmony at all costs. But real love doesn't require someone who's always straining to keep the peace. A small but powerful practice is the response gap. When your partner asks for something, don't answer right away. Breathe. Let a few seconds pass before responding. That pause is like a doorway. If the relationship is healthy, they'll respect the space. If it's toxic, that pause will trigger anger or accusations. And that reaction tells you everything you need to know about whether the love is real. In family life, the pleasing pattern often runs the deepest because you've played the peacemaker role since childhood. Every time conflict erupts, you jump in to restore calm, but the truth is that peace is temporary and you pay for it with your own exhaustion. It's time to set a new dialogue frame. Say clearly, "I won't participate when the conversation turns to criticism or sarcasm. If it continues, I'll leave." At first, your family may react strongly because they're used to your old role. But over time, your consistency forces them to adapt. True peace only comes when each person takes responsibility for their own emotions instead of using you as the buffer. In self-care, stopping the need to please isn't just about boundaries with others, but also boundaries with yourself. Many empaths live as if their body and mind exist only to serve others. They ignore fatigue, sacrifice sleep, set aside personal joy. To reverse that, you need a daily ritual of self-protection. A simple but effective trio: 5 minutes of deep breathing, 5 minutes of writing down where you felt your energy being drained, and 5 minutes of light movement or sunlight. These three small pieces, repeated every day, rebuild your psychological immune system. It's like recharging before you give. Stopping the habit of pleasing isn't a one-time decision. It's a series of concrete actions, repeated and reinforced. Each time you pause the old reflex, another brick is laid in the foundation of your autonomy. And over time, you'll notice your work becomes clearer, your love becomes healthier, your family more honest, and you yourself more full of life. This is how the paradox becomes reality. When you dare to refuse, when you dare to pause, you don't lose connection. You only lose the false ties, and that very clearing makes way for a new kind of life, less noise, but far more vitality. When you begin to change, when you stop nodding immediately, the system around you doesn't stay silent. It reacts. And often, the reaction is stronger than you expect. People will try every tactic to pull you back into your old role. Because for them, your role as the always pleasing one is the foundation of their comfort. When that foundation shakes, the whole house trembles, and to keep the house standing, they push back. The first trap is guilt. You'll hear familiar lines. Without you, I can't survive. You've changed. You're selfish now. Or worse, you're abandoning me right when I need you most. These words hit the softest spot in empaths, the fear of being a bad person. But remember this, guilt is not always the compass of truth. More often, it's just a chain. It drags you back into carrying the weight so others don't have to face responsibility for themselves. The second trap is Darvo, a common manipulation tactic. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. You speak the truth, they deny it. You set a boundary, they attack. And finally, they flip the roles. Suddenly they are the poor victim, and you are the cruel offender. If you're not aware, you get sucked into endless explanations and defenses until you're drained. Jung called this collective projection, when a group pushes their shadow onto you, all at once, to avoid looking at themselves. The third trap sounds gentler, but it's just as binding: forced kindness. This is when someone flatters you. You're such a good person, you're always there. On the surface, it feels nice. But underneath is an unspoken expectation: keep being that way. Don't change. Compliments like these are velvet chains, soft but still shackles. If you're not alert, you'll keep sacrificing to protect the image of being the good one, instead of living true to yourself. All three traps share the same purpose: to put you back in your old seat. But once you recognize them, you'll see they're just recurring plays with different actors. The accuser, the crier, the flatterer, all just roles designed to maintain one thing: dependence. So how do you avoid these traps? The key lies in conscious stillness. When guilt rises, don't rush to explain. When attacked, don't rush to respond. When overpraised, don't rush to accept. Allow silence to open. In that silence, you'll see clearly what's real love and what's just manipulation wrapped in emotion. The hardest battle isn't facing others, it's facing the voice inside you. The voice trained over years: if I don't do it, they'll suffer. If I don't endure, everything will collapse. But you need to see the truth. Things don't collapse because of you. They collapse because others refuse to stand on their own feet. And if you keep carrying them, you don't save them, you only prolong their weakness and bury yourself. Jung once wrote, "No one can become whole while still bound by the mask of the collective." That mask is the role of the pleaser. When you take it off, there will be reactions. There will be storms. But the storm isn't a sign you're wrong. It's proof that the old structure is cracking and a new one is waiting to rise. The truth is, you can't avoid every counterattack, but you can stand firm within them. And when you do, you send a powerful message: I am no longer a tool for your false sense of safety. I am an individual, and I choose to live authentically. After walking through the storms of guilt, counterattacks, and invisible chains, you emerge in a different state. No longer chasing other people's eyes, no longer the endless supply for everyone's needs. You become yourself clear, whole, complete. Carl Jung called this individuation, the moment you stop living as part of the collective and start living as a whole individual. In this state, you don't need to prove your strength. Your power radiates in stillness. Others feel it the moment you enter a room. No more forced smiles, no more rushed agreements. Instead, there is a presence that makes the space itself adjust. This is psychological sovereignty, and once you claim it, no one can ever take it from you. What's remarkable is that this power doesn't make you cold. On the contrary, it makes you more compassionate, but now your compassion is discerning. You are still kind, but no one can easily exploit you. You still listen, but you no longer allow yourself to be consumed. You give from fullness, not from depletion. This is the final paradox. When you stop living to please everyone, you finally begin to love the right way. You love others without losing yourself. You love yourself without shutting the world out. And that love, though quiet, is more enduring than anything you've ever known. Looking back, you may see loss. Some relationships fall away, some people leave. But look closer. What you lost were transactions, false attachments. What remains is connection, love, true companionship. And most importantly, you find yourself again. The final message to anchor is this. Stopping the cycle of pleasing isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the day you stop living as a shadow in someone else's story and start living as the flame in your own. If these words resonate with you, remember 3 things. Subscribe to continue the journey. Comment with your answer to this question. What moment made you realize you no longer have to this? Please everyone, share this video with someone stuck in the pleasing cycle. You never know, you might be the one who opens their first door to freedom. And don't leave just yet. Keep watching other content in my channel playlist, where I've shared deeper insights on the empath's journey and the hidden power within you. Each video is a piece of the puzzle, and when you see them together, the picture becomes clear. You were never weak. You were only in the process of becoming yourself.